Warning: the information given during this podcast is from professionals discussing situations from our experience and sharing knowledge.
We are not treating or diagnosing what you are personally experiencing, and if you are having difficulties, please seek professional help.
Hello and welcome. This is
It's Not You.
It's Them.
I'm Lauren.
And I'm Rich.
This series is about checking in and looking at ways to explore what is going on around you.
We're going to give you a brief description of who we are and our experiences before we discuss the first topic today. Lauren?
So I am from Generation Millennials, so that gives you an idea of where I fit in terms of age. My credentials, professional credentials, are I'm a licensed professional counsellor, licensed within the state of West Virginia in America. I am now in my 8th year of experience, both in community mental health and school counselling as well. I was a school counsellor for a few years. I live and work in America, even though I am British. My modality, I would specifically say, is person-centered theory, person-centered approach, client-centered. I do have a specialism, which is specialism in trauma. I'm a certified clinical trauma professional, so that's my specialism. My current client group is actually incarcerated individuals within the state of West Virginia, people who are experiencing a wide range of drug and alcohol issues, mental health issues, and are currently incarcerated. I do have experience working with children. I was probably about 12 when I first started working with kids. I've been a supervisor in an after-school club, camp leader, mentor, friend, and professor. So my experiences are wide and broad-reaching. So that's why I decided to do this with Rich. Rich?
I'm from Generation X, just missing out on the millennial bit. I have my credentials are I work in private practice at the minute. Before that, I used to be a project worker for that type of exploitation, domestic violence, that sort of thing. It was specifically targeted at LGBT young people, and it covered the whole county of Hampshire. So I did that. I trained to do my counselling. I worked in grief, young people, huge spectrum of that for several years. And then I went and did some counselling with an HIV charity in London. And then I've come back to Hampshire, and I'm now doing adult and young people just across the board in private practice. So that's my credentials. So I would say this is my 7th year, but I've had it on and off periods, whereas I think, like with you, Lauren, you've been straight through. I've had like a few bits and breaks here and there. I currently live in the south of England. My modality is Gestalt, mainly, which is more about creative ways of experiencing what's going on for clients. Specialisms definitely with LGBT and young people. My current client group at the minute is just adult and young people at the minute. I suppose, Lauren, the big first question is why we're doing this.
Okay, so why? So the biggest question that people are going to think reading this or listening to this is kind of why? Why are these two doing this? And I think in the years that Rich and I have known each other, he's one of my ride or dies, one of my best friends, but he's also a great professional colleague. He's always held me accountable and truthful for everything that I've done. And we have these conversations where we kind of debate theory, or we talk about clients, and we do peer supervision, and these common themes come up where if only people knew before they got into relationships, before they sort of internalized everything and went and got medication or went and got support, if they just knew what was happening in their brain or what was happening in front of them and they believed themselves a bit more, I think people would feel more empowered. And that this taboo topic of mental health isn't a kind of a reactive event, it's more of a proactive event. So the more you know, the easier it is to find your way out, I think.
Yes, definitely more along the lines of stopping, is slowing the process down and kind of go, if it doesn't feel right, it feels a bit weird, it feels a bit clunky. We've had a situation that's been going for this similar situation from different people or past. It's like we can slow it down and actually rather just accept it. You can look at it and be a bit more critical, I think, and this is what the space we're going to provide and what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, and we're going to use some different media contents, might present ideas that have come up in local news, both on the US side and the UK side, common themes and factors that might be in the news. We may use quotes or music clips or video clips. We do not own the rights to any of those clips. All credit goes to the authors and the content creators, but they are going to be used to highlight certain points or areas where we feel like that media file was more eloquent than we were in that moment. So we just wanted to make that clear as well. In this series, there's going to be 6 episodes. Each episode will either reference or have some sort of running theme. You don't have to have listened to all 6 for any of them to make any sense. They're also kind of going to exist to stand alone. And these are topics that we've come up with having had these discussions about this, clients we keep coming across, themes we keep coming across that seem to be common problems, and kind of bringing them down into discussions and offering it out to people to join in that discussion and share their experiences. So Rich, you want to talk about what the first...
This week's episode, Love from Corrupted Sources. So I'm going to start with this quote, what love shouldn't feel like. Love shouldn't feel circumstantial. It shouldn't feel as if I love you more than you love me, or vice versa. There shouldn't be conditions, levels, or lesser degrees of love. If there are, then when you're feeling, whatever you're feeling is something else. Maybe lust, maybe maybe comfort, but certainly not love. The effort shouldn't be one-sided. All of the little things can't come from one contributor. And if you hurt, your companion should as well. What do you think?
I think we're fed this idea of what love is since we're kids, right? You look at all the Disney films. You're from the early 80s. I'm from the late 80s.
Yes.
We had Cinderella, Snow White, Rapunzel, like all of the archaic stereotype sort of films where you find some stranger, you barely know him, suddenly you're married and living in a castle, and it's they live happily ever after. But there's no kind of what happens when they take the armor off part. And I think we're left sort of wanting in relationships because we don't understand that's actually not how it goes. And absolutely love, real essence of what love is, and all of the books and all of the quotes and everything else is that love is unconditional and it shows no judgment. So to be truly loving of somebody, you're choosing to see past their flaws, past their experiences, into the essence of who they are, right? That is what love is defined as. But weirdly, people, when they get into relationships, have this like conditional side that is, well, if he starts doing this, then I'm out. And it's like, is that a boundary or is it a condition? Or people set ultimatums. Well, you're either going to get rid of your cat or I'm not coming over.
Right. So it's like starting to go into that bit because we're not shown in stories and books and films and media how to negotiate that boundary. We're just so like, oh, if he does this, he's crap. Oh, he does that, he's not good. Or she does that, it's the same sort of thing. And it's not. It's like really obvious. So like the person's cheating on them or whatever, but it's never like, oh, this person's systematically pushing another agenda on me.
And I like this next quote because it kind of amplifies that a little bit. Is that love doesn't fix us, and it's not supposed to. Love is a motivator. Love should inspire us to do better, to be better. But humans are creatures of habit, and even in the best situations, breaking habits takes time and it takes effort. It takes a commitment to growth, and all the love in the world won't make someone grow who is dead set on remaining the same. And because people think they need somebody else to be a better human. It's not about needing someone. It's about the conditions for change, right? As therapists, what we provide?
The conditions to help, the safe space, the container for it to happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we offer the 3 things, which are what? Empathy.
Unconditional positive regards.
Influence. And that is unconditional love. Like we let people be whoever they need to be in that moment. And they make that change. It's not like oh, I'm suddenly going to meet Prince Charming and I'm going to let go of all of my ideals or bound history or experience or trauma or any of those things. It's when you're with someone that truly loves you, growth is inevitable.
How many times have we seen that in the movies though? Like the the nerd all of a sudden completely ignored whatever, and then meet somebody, they transform into this amazing thing, but it seems like their transformation is contingent on meeting somebody rather than I want to be a better person and then I've met somebody.
Yeah. And then sometimes you end up in relationships with people and you make them better and then they leave and going to be better for somebody else. It's kind of a kick in the teeth. But it's growth and change should not be stagnant, right? We know that.
That
people should always be growing. It's something that you don't just say, well, that's just the way I am. Well, that kind of shows a lack of willingness to grow as a human. And definitely power imbalances as well, which I think your next quote from like Julia is really interesting, because people almost set themselves up for failure sometimes, because they misunderstand the difference between functioning healthy relationship versus I'm not going to move or I'm not going to bend on this kind of boundaries. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, this one's from, I'm not going to say which trial, but it's a current trial that's going on at the minute, and it's about abuse. And her quote is saying, wrong, she never had the power in the relationship to be abusive to him. Did she hate him? Yes. Was it abuse? No. You need to have power for it to be able to be abuse. She was 25. He was always more powerful, including physically and financially. Now, do you agree with that?
No, my problem with that is that you don't get to tell somebody else what they feel is abusive or not, right? Abuse is based on violation of someone's human rights, and that's to be protected, supported, loved, and not hit. And even the Convention of the Children's Rights for Children's the Right of the Child states that abuse in any form, that's physical, emotional, whatever, whether he had the power or not, it is okay to put your hands on your partner, period. Because what not only is there physical marks of that, you start to damage and unravel who they are as a human, right? And we don't get to sit in the spectators column with popcorn say that is or is that is not abuse. It's based on what that person, what their boundaries are, what their expectations in their relationship is, what they have established as ground rules. If the person chooses to state within that relationship, I didn't consider that abuse and I'm fine. Okay. But that's experience, right? I can't say it is or it is not. Now, could I walk with them and kind of understand, okay, why are you not seeing that as abusive? Why would you willingly take a punch or a hit and say it's okay? Because it's not. So
because there is an element even within that, I think, experience of like project work and stuff is like, is it because they're not even entertaining that possibility because there's no way for them to act on it? There's no when like the resources, facilities. We did that as an exercise in the charity I worked at, and it was quite interesting. Even when we cast the wife is being a GP, successful, has her own money, and had a couple of kids with an abuser, how it would work out, and we wrote down the list of like all the things which would compromise them and pull them back into that situation. And it was just it's completely like that to me is a highlighter of, do you have the resources to move? Or is it to even contemplate that? Because sometimes it's not even safe for you to do that.
You're absolutely right. Like, it might not even be safe for that person to consider that that's abuse. You know, they're conditioned to think, all right, well, I stepped out of line, so I needed a slap. You know, that's what they've in their frame of reference, what they've sort of made peace with is maybe that was even their experience as a child, and they see that as not punishment or abuse. So it's very easy to sit on the sidelines of someone else's relationship and cast stones and judgment and those things, but it really has to come from within. And I think it also is the relationship patterns we learn as a kid, kind of where we came from. And I think that really is the basis. It's kind of like you get the instructions in an IKEA.
Yes.
Something
Yeah.
print or a manual. It's what's written in that manual is how you're going to be made up, right? And sometimes you have lost a screw, right? Or screws come from somewhere and you have no idea where it came from.
Yeah.
Or you make it fit, right? I've been
True.
there, the dodgy IKEA cabinet things are hanging off, but
it's almost like if you had built a chair to sit on when you were younger, would you still trust your younger self's ability to build something as an adult? Would you still sit on that same chair and think, this is going to hold me? No. Do you know what I mean?
And we don't pay enough attention as adults to what we were shown as children, right? We're taking in all these messages, we're taking in all these shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or do this or don't do this, or watching mum and dad or whoever is in your family unit display what is a relationship, because then it casts into the future your expectations of a relationship. So if you've come from an abusive household where dad has abused mum, you're less trusting of men. You're going to have this perception of men that they're less than or were, all men are the same, and you have this corrupted source of it. If you have two mums growing up, you might have an emotional outlook on life, or you might not. It might be your single mom did the best she could and she was a powerful woman, so you might have good relationships with women. So but I think, and that goes along with that codependent thinking, is and I'll read the quote and we'll continue. That is, emotionally neglected as children, many of us relied on daydreaming and fantasies to help us fend off loneliness. We imagined being rescued by the kindest, most loving and romantic partners. As adults, we often idealize romantic partners and fail to see others as perfectly flawed human beings. We find in ourselves in cognitive dissonance when reality does not match our fantasy. It takes us time to process denial and to learn how to let go of the whimsical thinking that kept us feeling not so alone as children. As adults, we learn to see ourselves and others more realistically, and we assert healthy boundaries when necessary. We are learning to separate logic and reason from the unrealistic demands the fantasies in our heads create. And that's just literally encapsulated everything that we've just talked about.
Yes, I would definitely say that, because part of what there's two sort of like bits that are sticking in my head. You've got the one bit about the influence and exposure what children have. Initially it's just the household, but eventually it's their school life, their friends, families, being around them and seeing all them dynamics is definitely one part of it. And again, it's like that collective thing. And the other bit was around if you're from the LGBT background or experiencing anything of that, it's hard visualizing what a relationship means to you if you can't see it within your immediate family setup or within the extended family or like somebody else. Like if you can't see it, it's really hard to think where's my baseline. And I think this is what you're saying, like adjusting the baseline is important.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the perception of reality is off, right?
Like
if you're imagine you've gone through mum and dad were divorced when you were a kid. Now however old you were, that's still what we would call a fracture, right? It's been a fracture in your family unit, and that comes with all sorts of leftover unanswered questions, experiences, and that can really cause damage in terms of relationships. But what happens is you have this like filtered lens then applied to your blueprint. That goes along with any experience, whether it be an early experience with a male partner, drunk in a club or whatever. All of these little pieces of information start to almost fuzz the lines of that blueprint, and it affects the way we process information. So if you came from a family and it was an ugly divorce, your perception of relationships is going to be altered, like they're not finite, right? Like people get divorced all the time, and although I'm English, I live in America, and what's very interesting is the amount of times that they get remarried. There's a couple of clients that are on their 4th or 5th marriage, And that's so bizarre to me. It's kind of like it's like they're seeking something. Like that marriage is the marriage, the house, the picket fence, the dogs, the kids is much more embedded in American culture, in that's the ultimate fantasy.
Cool. And is that that's what you should be, that's the grand prize that you should be seeking at all times. Your goal should now readjust so you get that. So you get that.
Your high school sweetheart. You buy the have a house, then you have kids and you have a dog and you have the house on the corner and it's beautiful. And then there's a lot of LGBT couples that are in their, women especially, that are in their 30s that have kids that are now in lesbian relationships because they're actually always lesbian. And there's West Virginia, there's a high count of those families because it wasn't okay to be anything else, because you would have been ostracized or cast out. And it's like, okay, so the perception of reality is, if I don't do this, then what?
I would definitely say that's exactly the same as it was like north of it. I'm from the north of England, northeast, and grew up in the wonderful glossy days of the 90s where it was just harsh as anything. I mean, like, they didn't have like a designer store. Like, I remember when French Connection opened up and they had that big thing about FCUK.
Yeah, I remember that.
And millions of grannies running up and down going, oh, look, we've got swear words written there. No. And all that stuff. So, like, change, they did not take it easily at all. So that definitely thing was definitely prevalent in the Northeast. Like, anything that's outside of this bubble, it's not normal. You got it's something wrong with you, or you were othered straight away. And it wasn't just othered as in, it's othered plus shame that you should never feel this way. Like, why did you create this problem? So it was like this real harsh stuff. And that, I think, I watched a clip from Panty Bliss, and she delivers a speech as part of a documentary thing that she did. And she talks about checking yourself and that internalized homophobia. Like that is quite, it will stick with everybody, not just like people being toxic, just that sort of stuff. Yeah,
and I think people get into relationships and they don't understand that there's actually 3 different phases of love. Right? You have that first chemical reaction, which is, this person is the best thing since sliced bread. You're looking at them through rose-tinted glasses. They can do no wrong. Whether your family see it or not, you won't listen to reason in terms of this person is a bad egg or any of that stuff. And that's usually 6 to 8 months that phase lasts, if it's a kind of strong connection. And then they'll do something or say something you didn't expect, or their reaction to something is surprising. And then suddenly the rose-tinted glasses are off and now you're dealing with the real person, right? Like, and people can't conceptualize like what happened. It's very much like, you weren't who I thought you were, and okay, I'm gonna drop him, right? Because it got weird, or suddenly you realize you had a different political view on something. And I think people don't understand that genuine disagreement about an event or an opinion can include different opinions and perceptions about what happened. So me and you can experience the same event and have 2 very different experiences as a result. Because we have our own blueprints and we have our own experiences, and that's what our information goes through. But people don't understand that healthy disagreements are how we change and grow.
Absolutely, because it's like, it's as you're saying, it's like, it's challenging all your blueprint, right? Making you go, come on, look back through your back catalogue of how you're built. Have you never challenged any of this since you were given it?
And it's interesting because people tiptoe as partners around religion. They'll tiptoe around politics. They'll tiptoe around, people don't talk about money or debt or dreams or experiences, and then suddenly they're married and actually, oh, I didn't realize you're on the opposite political side as I am. Actually, we have some differing views, and I don't agree with the damn thing you're saying. So we just won't say.
They just blanket. We'll just blanket.
But
is that a British thing, or is that a universal thing?
I think that's universal. I think Brits, we're more uptight and repressed about it. I think.
Yeah.
Much more sort of, well, it's just not done. You know what I mean? We're just not done in this house. Have a cup of tea and a biscuit and be quiet. You know what I mean? Talk about something.
Sit and grumble in the corner.
In America, it's almost like an active sport. My experience at me own has been it's more of an active sport. It's like you'll see. Never in America would you see a prime minister toting sticker or a sticker about the Queen or a sticker about on your car saying F the other side or don't blame me, vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden, and all these like offensive stickers that are just on the back of someone's car, like zero Fs about what somebody thinks. But I think what people don't understand is the difference between a disagreement versus gaslighting.
Right.
Now,
absolutely,
that we've heard quite a lot is currently being at popular trial right now about what gaslighting actually means. Now, gaslighting is when someone, when you know an event has happened and someone is challenging that reality of that event. So so what it states in this quote that we have is that it's manipulating you by making you question your reality, using blatant untrue statements to question your sanity, and questioning your experience is used as a way to make you feel inadequate or less credible than you are. Now, what makes this so insidious, gaslighting, because it's the hardest one to undo as therapists, is the goal is to erode your self-confidence and your self-concept. Now, when you start questioning your own reality, that's when you start to unravel and unravel quickly. It's abusive, it's unacceptable. And if you know something happened, it did.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
and as I think with I think with a lot of abusive traits and a lot of abusive stuff, what's annoying about it is it's just on the wrong side of how you would actually conduct things. So in essence, it sounds plausible, but they somehow have perverted it at the end. So like manipulate and make you question reality rather than disagree about of how something happened. It's like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just that little move across with the needle that makes it that dangerous, and this makes it even harder to spot because part of the lead into it makes it feel, oh, well, this is a normal thing to question how I thought about it.
Exactly, and it also goes along the lines of coercive control, right? Anything that really you're manipulated by, something happened, but it's too dangerous for you to challenge the other. I'm just going to agree just to be silent because if I say anything, I'm going to get smacked. And it's the hardest to prove. Like, it's in law in the UK, right? It is against law and coercive control, but the police and the government openly own it's so hard to prove. So whilst it's great that we have that, what
the threshold, but I think the annoying bit from the bit that I gathered was it's the threshold for them to investigate is too high. They should be a lot lower. Like an investigation means, you gather the stuff. I don't think it should be explored a lot more because that's when you find the nuanced bit of actually you've crossed the line here. It's like getting even that bit there, the goal is to understand someone else's side as in disagreeing, as healthy disagreeing, and then gaslighting, the goal is to erode your confidence in what you're saying. That is, do you know what I mean? It's just that little bit of, well, if that's how you're trying to win an argument, but there's a difference, there's a healthy way, because you'll be battling fact with fact rather than I'm going to make you question your facts because you're uncertain about what you've got.
Their grounding, right? You believe, okay, you may believe things about yourself and about your day, like you're told the sky is blue. Why do we know it's blue? Because we're told the sky is blue.
Yeah.
Actively arguing with you that the sky is not blue, it's pink.
Yeah.
You can't conceptualize it because it doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? The sky is blue. But the other person is so adamant and so clever in the way that they construct it. Like, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. The sky is pink. Eventually, is it pink?
And is I noticing the tinges? If I look hardly enough, I can maybe see where they're coming from.
If I say it's pink, does that make me a better person? Like, I'll just not tell anyone that I think it's blue, and I'll just say that it's pink. And all of these little things you start to give up without realizing is what creates that toxicity.
Because they treat you different until you admit what they're saying,
Absolutely.
and then it's like
This
Yeah.
shaming, the guilt, if you love me enough, you'd say it was pink. Oh my God, that is so damaging. And it takes, what's interesting about disagreeing and gaslighting is like smoke in a club.
Yes.
It just slowly creeps across, and before you know it, everywhere is covered in fog, and you have no idea where it came from, how quickly it was going. But disagreeing, there's an end, right? You and I agree, right? There's an end to the process.
Yeah. And it's almost like we can put that to one side and move on. Like we're gonna get on with our day. But this one seems like, as you're saying, it's like I love that. I love that description, by the way, like smoke in a club. It's such like that. And it just envelops all of you, because it's like, oh, I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
And I think especially with the current media trial that's happening right now, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, has created, and what makes me sad is two things I kind of experience. One is sadness in that this is someone's awful experience. Now, who was abusive and who wasn't is not, it's like a free ring circus right now. They both should be in therapy. They both should be receiving support. Even if Amber Heard has been classified as the narcissist, she still needs mental health support. So it doesn't injure or hurt anybody else. Johnny Depp clearly has problem with pills and alcohol. He's an addict. He also needs support. Now, who was the lesser evil doesn't really matter, because you have two very hurt, in pain, damaged people, and then people wonder why people don't leave.
Is that not the worst comment that you get? Why didn't they leave? Why didn't they leave?
As a therapist, it's a question I actively, if I'm dealing with domestic violence, I will never ask. Ever. Because it's not about why didn't they leave. It's about what kept them from leaving. Right? It's not, people think it's on the victim's choice, whether that be male or female. No, it isn't. It isn't, because you know that 80% of people die as a result of trying to get away from their abuse. If there's children involved, there's the worrying about their own kids' lives. Would they kidnap the kids or do a murder-suicide or like?
Well, I mean, definitely it was when I was at a charity in Hampshire, especially when we did the training around domestic violence, that they said on average it's 6 to 7, or was it 7 to 8 attempts before it's finally successful in terms of getting out of the situation. And it was recently shown on British TV. There was a drama series where the policewoman was part of it. She's quite a new policewoman, and she was obviously experiencing domestic violence, and her partner tells her to get in the cupboard, and she sits in the cupboard and he puts a coat hanger across the front, and you could see the struggle in her mind, because her colleague was calling on the radio of like, should I, how can it was just almost like you could see so many things at play, like the shame, I can't tell this to somebody else, and it's just I hate that word, it's just a door, it's just a coat hanger, it's never just anything.
And I think that's why I think we chose the title of Love is in Corrupted Sources, because it's not one day they're nice and lovely and the next day they are abusive. It's again with these, it's just like that smoke, right? And it comes in, and before you know it, and people, why did you go back to him? Well, he has all the money, the power. I have no self-esteem. I have no self-concept. I don't know who I am without him. I want my kids to have a family when they grow up. And all of these conditions and these things that are used, your blueprint is used against you to keep you captive. And people are not seeing an abusive relationship as a victim and a persecutor, right? This is not, these people are very good at what they do. And it's not about you. It's not. And that's why we really have to look at our own blueprints before we get into relationships with other people. Because when you start to see toxic patterns or behavioral patterns that you are not happy with, whether it's hanging on people all the time, whether it's, well, I need my guy to be 6'2", tall, dark, handsome, he needs to go to the gym. Why?
Yeah.
He's not a grocery list, you know what I mean? It's not real life. Then you're starting to buy into the Cinderella BS. Unless you're willing to look within and kind of say, you know what, that was out of line and I am sorry and I need to address that. I shouldn't have reacted like that. Or, okay, this guy said something I didn't like. Okay, he's human, right? can I ask why you said that? Can we talk about where that's coming from? Rather than, all right, this guy's a creep, I'm out.
But do you think, no, well, there's so many bits that were pinging off in my head as you were saying that. I was like, but what about this? What about this? One of them was, do you think people in romantic relationships have an issue, but they also have an issue with their non-romantic ones? So like friends and family.
Yeah.
Do you think it's across the board? It's not just like I can do everything else, but I can't do it with this romantic thing.
I think it depends who the person is and what the toxic behavior is. So if
Right.
I think if it's a boundary issues, that's common across all platforms.
Right.
Like, hey, do you want to meet at 8:00, knowing that you've worked all day? Like,
Yeah.
do 8 p.m. Okay, like, where do you want to go to eat? Wherever you want. Like, people not having enough sort of confidence to kind of be like, you know what, I've worked all day, I'll catch you another time, and not feel like, oh my god, I'm letting them down, I'm going to get kicked out of our friendship group. Like, all
that
of those.
is such a thing. Like it's recently happened to a family member of mine. In her group of friends, she's the one who's just had a baby, the rest of them haven't, and they just do not understand the principles of like what a baby has, affects you by. And I'm like, I don't have a baby, but I can understand like your life changes. Like, and I have friends who have got children, and I understand their lives are completely different because there's so much focused on that development of that child. Like, I totally understand. I'm always there for them, but I understand the engagement, and if what they can and can't do things, I understand that as well. Like, so it's very interesting, like within that social setting that my family member had, it was just that people just don't want to understand where you're coming from. They don't want to do that extra.
Yeah, and I think love is a unique experience, and I think it's something that as humans we haven't really put a finger on in terms of what love means to one person could mean something to somebody else. And we are going to talk about kind of love languages, and that's really help people understand, okay, well, I keep doing this, but it's not getting the response that I'm expecting. I don't understand why.
Right.
And that again into that blueprint of you keep doing the same thing over and over
going on?
Definition of right, the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. If you have 17 boyfriends and you have a problem with that, what's the common denominator? You.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not the people you're dating, and maybe it's you.
Because
that's a terrifying thing for younger adults especially to do, is to recognize I'm the problem.
Or do you think it's recognized that I'm part of the problem? Because it's like it's a half and half thing, because it's almost like, yes, it's part of them, but you've also got these problematic people who will just, like when people say, why is it always me? They try every single door. And if you're in a place of not being in your power or being solid, you just can't let them in. So it's like,
I think that's a self-concept issue. It's kind of like knowing what you actually need or want, or being scared to ask for it. So you try absolutely everything else on in the store, knowing full well not going to fit. So it's almost like avoidance and a glutton for punishment. Like, why would you put yourself through that knowing that it's not going to work out? But then some people can throw their hands up and say, well, I tried. It's got that.
Right.
It's almost like, I tried and it still didn't work out. So what have you got for me now, kind of thing. But again, it's those blueprints, man. Those blueprints are a killer, and people have got to address those issues if they really want to be in those healthy relationships.
I think it's 100% very sound advice. Very sound advice, and a good place to end on. I think it's a hopeful place to end on. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully you'll tune in next week and look forward to that.
Yes, feel free to post comments, questions, concerns. We'll post information that you can contact us on, raise questions, comment on anything that we've said, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Until next week. Bye.